All right. Good morning. I'm Jen Bloomhagen. I am the Motor Vehicle Division Director with NDDOT. So if you need help with your plates or your registration card, come see me afterwards. I'm happy to present to you Brandon Beise with NDDOT and Brad Wentz with Upper Great Plains. And they are here today to take us through the exciting future of transportation management centers. And then immediately following this session, we're all going to be downstairs in the main hall to hear from Teresa and Ryan with Vision Zero on what they're doing to help reduce crash fatalities. So welcome, Brandon.
Hold for applause. Hold for applause. A couple disclaimers before I get going. One is I didn't get any intro music. I had the suggestion to use my phone as I walked up here, but I didn't get that set up in time. The second disclaimer is this is a really small slideshow, or screen. So Andy kind of misled me on that. So those of you guys in the back, you might want to come up front to see some of the smaller text that I have up here. But I'll let you guys move if you want. Transportation Management Center, an overview, is what we're signed up for today. I'm going to go over what we're doing now, or what a TMC is, what we're doing now, and then kind of where we're going into the future. And then Brad's going to finish it off with some advanced technologies that Upper Great Plains and ATAC are working on. So I guess we'll jump right into it. Like I said, that's me and Brad, and our emails are there if you guys want to ask us any questions later. I don't know if we'll have a Q&A at the end. I don't think we'll have time for it. So like I kind of got into the overview, what a TMC is. The things that we're already doing, North Dakota DOT is already doing a lot of a TMC functions. It's just not organized and consolidated in such a way that other states and other agencies have a formal traffic management center. We'll get into some of our current limitations and how are we preparing for a TMC into the future? What are some of the steps that we have taken to this point? And then we'll get into the RAISE grant, and that's a planning grant that we were awarded here this fall to plan out a TMC and a smart corridor for that matter. And then we'll just briefly touch on some TMC and smart corridor possibilities or potentials in the end. And then like I said, at the end, Brad's going to give us an update on some advanced technologies that his group has been working with. So a traffic management center, what is it? Ultimately, TMCs, they turn data into information. They're the nerve center or the hub of a whole bunch of data collection features, devices along the road, other data collection features. And they're consolidating that all into one spot, turning that information or that data into information so that operators can monitor the roadways and then initiate control strategies that affect changes on the road and the travelers in near real time. They're watching the big screens that we might have seen, and I've got a couple pictures of that. They're getting automatic data feeds, warnings, sensors, all that kind of stuff, and then making changes to the highway system in near real time. But because of its critical role in the successful operation of an entire transportation network, it's essential that a TMC be planned and designed and commissioned and maintained to allow those operators to manage the functions of a TMC properly. And this is one of those slides that's really hard to read in the back, but it's really just showing that a TMC in the center is connected to a whole bunch of different devices and features. The roadside things like traffic signals, video surveillance, our weather stations that we have out there, and even the dynamic message signs, the DMS that we change during storms and things like that. That's all connected into the TMC. But the TMC is also working with the maintenance and the construction crews and emergency managers, and the bigger TMCs then are also working with transit management centers too. And they're using all that information and all that data and then kicking it out to, in this case, travel information, 511, our travel map, roadside signs that'll change driver behavior. So essentially that's what they're trying to do, is take all that information and give it out to the public to manage that traffic on the transportation network. These are just a few pictures of some TMCs that I've been to and had the opportunity to take pictures of. There's the North Carolina one in Raleigh, the Middle Tennessee one in Nashville, and then KC Scout in Kansas City. Those are your urban network freeway management centers. And they've got the big screens with all their cameras, and they're flashing through, watching all the entire freeway network. And then there's the one, like the Wyoming one in the upper left. That's more of a rural-focused TMC. They're doing a lot of the same stuff, but it's just got a rural flavor to it. Wyoming DOT has been doing their TMC for quite a while now, and it's pretty mature, and they've got a lot of good features. But one of the cool things about all these TMCs is the different staffing options that they have. Some of the bigger ones are using contracted services, or their operators are contracted, and some of the other ones are using DOT staff to fill that need. And then I briefly touched on the rural nature versus the urban nature, and obviously in North Dakota, if we advance with the TMC, it would be a rural nature TMC. This is what we've got currently. On the left, we've got some TV screens on the third floor of our DOT building. They flash through pictures of cameras. They show the travel map. Some real basic things that we wanted to get that information out. And then on the right is the Fargo district. They're doing a lot of traffic control signals on the interchanges on 29 and 94. And they're interconnected to the city of Fargo and the city of West Fargo as well. So we're doing a lot of the same stuff, like I said, but it's just not maybe as consolidated or as pretty as some of the bigger features. And then one of the other things that we do is that lower left picture is my office in my house. And we, during storm events, especially on the weekends and in the evening hours, we have a virtual TMC. We can do all of the same functions from our office at home. And that is something that some of the bigger TMCs have struggled with, especially during COVID when we couldn't have people in the office, is that virtual piece of the TMC. That's something that North Dakota has, we've hit the ground running with that one already just because of our limitations and the needs that we needed to, the constraints that we had previously. This is a picture of our travel map, and I don't remember when that was taken, when we had US 2 and 29 closed a couple weeks ago. But this is one of the most public-facing tools that the DOT has. We get a ton of comments on our travel map. People let us know when it's not right, so we definitely try to make sure that we are getting the proper information out there. And our travel map has all of our cameras. It's got access to see what DMS messages we have out there. We've got about a third of our plows connected to GPS control, so you can see where the plows are in the state, at least a third of them anyway. This was built in-house. It's, I forget, 20 years old or more, and it's been through a number of different iterations. But it's all in-house. We don't contract that out. The back end of it, the data entry, and that's where our snowplow operators are actually entering the road conditions. As they plow the road, they'll pull over when they're done with that stretch and update the road condition for that segment. That was all built in-house as well, and that designed a mobile website for those operators to take care of that. We have given some access to state radio, and that's basically the 911 calls, the PSAP. I forget what PSAP stands for, but 911 call centers. They can update the map when we are not available, and that's the overnight hours and some of those types of things, that they can cover that for us. And then our districts also have access to update most of these features, so it doesn't have to come out of the central office for that. And this storm that was over this last holiday weekend, when we had 29 and 94 closed for a while, we had over 1 million map views on those 2 days. That's a pretty big number. And then the Christmas storm here this winter too, when we had more highways closed, we had 1.1 million map views on that too. So we're getting a lot of this information out there, I guess, is what I want to go with that, where I want to go with that. This one just shows through our ND roads, the travel information map. There's a lot of things that need to be entered manually by us in the central office or the districts or whoever's entering it, and that would be a TMC function in the future. But the road conditions, the work zones, different travel warnings, load restrictions, stuff like that, that takes a manual entry to do that. But we also have a lot of automated feeds. Our cameras out there are doing snapshots every 5 or 10 minutes, and that's being automatically fed into our travel map. Same with the snowplow tracking, and we've connected to some of the Highway Patrol computer-aided dispatch, CAD, I think. Anyway, so when their Highway Patrol has an accident or something on the road, they're entering into their CAD system, and that's automatically being fed to our travel map. So you'll see the warnings and the incidents on the travel map there. Things like the DMS and the RWIS stations, those are automatically fed in here too. And then we've got some other outside agencies like the National Weather Service alerts. We've got a third-party contracted radar that's updated automatically. And now this last season, we've added the NDOT weather sites. So a lot of the ag weather sites across the state, all of them now are included in our travel information map. I wanted to touch briefly on our travel alerts. We have 3 different levels of travel alerts, or travel warnings, I should say. That's travel alerts, no travel advisories, and the road closures. And those travel warnings are initiated at the district level. Our DOT districts are working with either Highway Patrol or the counties, county sheriffs, law enforcement. Once they decide that they want to elevate to that, they'll call us, and then from the central office, we'll issue the warning. We'll work with our DOT communication staff for news releases, social media, whatever. We'll make sure the map's updated. Our call-in, our 511, if you call 511, you can get those road conditions. We update that. We'll post DMS messages as necessary. And then we'll also notify other partners like state radio, or if it's going to be a closure, we'll notify MnDOT or South Dakota or even Manitoba 29. So those warnings are initiated at the district level, but they come in to us in the central office for the more coordinated effect of it all. We have a central software that controls most of our devices, an advanced traffic management system, ATMS. And that is controlling our DMS. When we want to change the messages on the side of the highways, we come into this program and change that. We get our RWIS information. Those are the weather stations that we have. The cameras, we have pan, tilt, zoom cameras across the state. We can get in there and move those cameras around if there's something that we need to look at. And then also we have some speed detection. Our radar speed sensors, I forget how many we have, but we have a number of those that we can watch. If speeds are starting to drop, that's an indication that maybe road conditions are getting bad. And then we also have the port of entry signing. So up by the Pembina border crossing, we control, with the help of Canada Border Patrol, lane designations, where the trucks need to be for certain times of the day crossing into the border. We've provided limited access to Highway Patrol so that they can do some DMS activations if there's accidents or something. They have the ability to get in there and change a few of those message signs. And then also the Canada Border Patrol, obviously, so they can control the Pembina border crossing. Briefly, our ITS systems, Intelligent Transportation Systems, we have over 150 cameras. We have 77 of those DMS boards across the state, and those DMS are basically located at our major urban, quote unquote, urban areas, especially where road closure gates are. So we don't stack trucks up on some small town in the middle of nowhere. We save those road closures for closure points like Bismarck and Jamestown and Fargo, that kind of thing. And then we have a number of devices. I don't want to get into all of them, but the idea here is that we have a lot of the stuff that a TMC would need. We're trying to consolidate that and get it all moving under the same umbrella, basically is where I want to go with that. Our current TMC operations, some of the advanced things that we're doing, fiber optics. We have fiber optic connections throughout Bismarck and Fargo metro areas, and it's incredible how much faster that fiber optic connection is, that communication, versus going through other sites across the state where we're using cell connection. We push the button on the fiber stuff and then the message changes. There's no latency. We don't have to wait very long for that at all. We're working with Wyoming DOT on their connected vehicle pilot program, and that what we're doing there is all of our travel information, TIMs, traveler information messages, we are sending those automatically to Wyoming and their connected vehicle pilot program, their situational data exchange, so that if any of Wyoming's connected vehicles travel through North Dakota, that connected vehicle would get a message that, hey, there's something up ahead of you. Obviously, that's probably not going to happen, but the idea is there that we are working on getting those messages to some sort of data exchange. The proof of concept is there. It works. As soon as we advance some connected vehicle programs in our state, we'll be able to take that information and just transfer it over. It's kind of the same thing with Washington's work zone data exchange program or pilot project. They've got a federal highway project that they're working on, and we're doing the same thing with our work zone data exchange, or work zone stuff, information as well. So the proof of concept is there that we can send this information out. We're also working with Waze. We're sharing information with Waze, the travel app, and we're starting to get in some automated messages and wrong way detections and some autonomous vehicles as well. So we're doing a lot of this stuff. And then we get into what Fargo's doing with their signals and their signal timings. They control the signals on the interchanges in the Fargo metro area. So during Beise football games or the air show or something, they can monitor traffic and adjust that signal timing so that traffic doesn't back down the ramps and start clogging up the interstates. And then they're also doing like DMS messages, use 12th Avenue, use 19th Avenue, whatever the situation calls for. So we're doing a lot of cool stuff, but there are several limitations. Our ATMS, our automatic traffic management system, controls most of our devices, but not all of them. So that's one of the things that we need to grow toward, is getting all of our devices under one umbrella, one software umbrella. That'll make it easier. We won't have different systems doing different things and just making everything as complicated as, or that is complicated, more complicated than it needs to be. The other big shortfall that we have is we're not a 24-hour operation. We don't have TMC staff or any central office staff for that matter on a 24-hour basis watching road conditions, watching travel information. And for that matter, we don't have field operations that are 24 hours either. So we don't have snowplows out past late evening hours until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, the next morning. And we run, I mean, how many times do we have snowstorms that come in over the winter, or over the night, right? So that's another thing that we could work toward. We don't have dedicated staff to TMC operations. We have a number of us in our office that can do it and do it, but when we get a snow day, a big snowstorm, there's a lot of other work that we're supposed to be doing also that doesn't get done because we're focusing on the priority, which is the snowstorm at that time. And then working with other agencies. There's a number of different agencies out there with different devices and different softwares that we need to try to consolidate or integrate. And there's no real good coordination method with our neighboring states and their TMCs. If we have a region-wide event, there's no real point of contact for those people to call us. They let a number of us know in the office, but I wish there were more of a coordinated effort on some of that stuff. So then, with all that information, a couple years ago, ATAC, Brad's group, put together a TMC concept of operations. That they wanted to look at what it would take for the DOT to get a fully functioning TMC. And it was based on existing planning, technical work. They did a whole bunch of stakeholder engagement meetings and tried to lay out what we would need for a TMC. And looking at like the systems engineering and the ITS architecture and all that type of stuff that make a real concise document that says this is your roadmap for getting a TMC, or what a TMC would do, I guess, the concept of operations. So they put that together in December of 2020. It looks like it was done. But what that did was ask these real high-level questions. We needed to nail down what we wanted it to do. It needed to solve problems that the DOT had, not just give pie-in-the-sky recommendations. Wouldn't it be cool if you did this? It really got down to, like, who are we doing this for? What problems are we trying to solve? What's it going to look like? The purpose? Are we going to do everything, or are we going to focus on these more real immediate needs? So they did a really nice job of laying that all out. And this is another slide that I had totally hoped to go through in detail, but you guys in the back will never see that. But what it really just shows you is just the different TMC functions, and across the top and then down the left side was all of our DOT districts. And we wanted to talk to our districts and figure out which of these TMC functions would be best served as a TMC, which would be best served at a district level, and maybe there was a combination of both. And ATAC did a whole bunch of these types of meetings with other stakeholders. Between our divisions and districts, they also had NDIT involved, and Department of Emergency Services and State Radio. Highway Patrol was a big player in these things. And then the county sheriffs were involved, as well as the Association of Counties. So they tried to really get a good grip on what we wanted this TMC to do. And they analyzed many of the proposed functions, and we have a whole bunch of short-term functions, and it's hard to read. But there's a lot of those that we're already doing. Things like travel information, roadway monitoring, road closures, stuff like that. But there are limitations to what we're doing. So the short-term functions, to get them up to speed on what we want it to really look like, and then some long-term functions like citizen reporting, where citizens can use an app to submit road conditions to the travel map. A number of states are doing it. It seems to work well for them. Or variable speed limits, where we can drop the speed limit automatically by pushing a button in our office, especially during snow events, when we start to get some people driving super fast, some people driving super slow, and that's where we get a lot of the accidents. Wyoming is doing this incredibly well. They've got a number of different segments along their interstates, and their crashes and their fatalities have been reduced significantly. And then some CAV, some connected and automated vehicle applications. So they tried to piece all that together on what we want this TMC to do, and it came up with requirements, a physical space. What is it going to look like? Where is it going to be? What are we going to need for desks and computers and all that kind of stuff? And then the hardware. What kind of computers are we going to need in those offices? How about roadside devices? What would be the best place where? What else we got? The software, that central controlling software to control everything, and then also the staffing requirements, which is huge. How many people are we going to need to have proper coverage 24/7? And the concept of operations tried to lay a lot of that stuff out for our TMC. And they came up with the 3 focus areas, and it's bring devices and systems together, expand the roadway monitoring to 24/7, and plan for future technology deployments. Those were the things that we thought would be the lowest hanging fruit to get us moving down the road of a TMC. And that ConOps that Brad's group put together, it's been used for a number of different funding opportunities. We've applied for a few different grants since it came out in 2020, late 2020. And moving forward then, we did get approved for a raised planning grant. The project will conduct a planning for a statewide TMC. It's going to monitor the transportation network, dispatch maintenance resources, and provide coordinated travel information. And the planning grant is the RAISE grant, RAISE stands for Rebuilding American Infrastructure and Sustainability and Equity. And it's, like I said, it's a planning grant. It's not going to build anything, but it's going to get us up to the point, plans on the shelf, that when we get that extra funding to go out and build some stuff, we'll be ready to go when that happens. And it was based on a lot of what UGPTI did in that traffic management center ConOps. And like I said, we were notified of award late 2021, and we are working on getting that RFP out on the street now. The map shows just that there was a whole bunch of raised planning grants awarded across the country, and they're urban and rural in nature. So, and ours is obviously going to be a rural in nature planning grant. So this RAISE grant is going to plan for a design and integration and operation of a TMC. We will work on an RFP, and that's getting out soon. If it's not out today, it's going to be end of this week or early next week, hopefully. And we'll get a consultant on board to create a plan for the future TMC and the smart corridor. And I'll touch on what the smart corridor is going to be in a minute. But it's going to address the implementation phases and the system and financial requirements of a TMC. So the grant is going to be out there. It's really just planning. Like I said, we're getting plans on the shelf, everything up to a point where we can go out and build it. Like I said, the RFP is going to be available soon, and we'll hopefully give them responses then we'll get the responses back in 4 weeks. So then we'll meet like we do with any RFP, review the proposals, and look at or interview the consultants. And then the idea then is after we get a consultant on board, 18 months later, we'll have everything in place to be built. Just real briefly, we estimated the TMC is going to cost about $500,000. The smart corridor, which is going to be I-29, it'd be about just under 500. And then if we need to build anything so we'll get an architect on board as well, a small amount of money there. So 1.1 million is what our estimate was. The raise grant covers half of that cost, and then our legislator gave us the ability to match federal funding up to 50%. So that's where the funding splits will come from. So the planning grant is there, provides the overall framework for the design, integration, operation of the TMC. The consultants are going to provide us with short, midterm, and long-term recommendations, and for basic TMC operations and smart corridor operations. And they're going to get the necessary permits, the optimal staffing plans, make sure the ITS architecture is in place, and give us some phased implementation of how that's going to move forward from 18 months from now. So real briefly, again, those in the back are going to have a hard time reading this, but these are some potentials that a TMC could do for North Dakota. And first and foremost, I think it's going to be a 24/7 continuous monitoring of the devices. That seems to be the standard, the status quo of most TMCs across the country. So that seems like it would be a pretty easy recommendation. Using automated tools to quickly notify travelers on the road. So between the operators watching all of the devices and those devices sending warnings to the operators that, hey, something's happening here, and then those operators changing the travel information to quickly get that information out on the road. It'll be a point of contact for all agencies. So if there is an emergency, there's one point of contact to the DOT to worry about the transportation network. Right now, we've got different ways to do that, but if we had one point of contact, one phone number, that would be easiest. The smart corridor is going to be I-29, and smart corridor, we're going to put a lot of devices out there to get I-29 up to speed with a lot of the technology that is available. And that's going to be a little more difficult to kind of imagine what's going to be there, because it's almost the sky's the limit on what could be put out there. But the planning grant will get the initial phases developed to outfit I-29 with other newer, cooler devices. And then it could be potentially urban and rural applications based on whatever the consultants give us. And that's kind of my summary of what the TMC was going to do, and a brief touching on the I-29 smart corridor. Brad, I left him a couple of minutes. He's going to talk about what ATAC wants to do with.
Yeah, a couple of minutes. I'm kind of hitting some tough subjects for a couple of minutes, but I just wanted to quickly just kind of go over what our future role is with UGPTI. As Brendan said, we've been working a long time through our ATAC program to help develop these concept of operations and all types of research and dealing with ITS and the TMC. So, but now going forward, our role is kind of changing a little bit where the DOT is getting more into the design and construction and implementation of these concepts, and of course, we're more of a research agency and research and outreach, so we'll probably be less involved with that design and development part of it, but we will continue to support the planning and the development of the TMC and work with the consultants that get hired to assist the DOT in implementation. But one of the big things is there's an opportunity that comes with implementation of a TMC, and that is where we're going to try to focus our efforts a little bit more, and that's in the transportation data analytics. We'll probably have a center or in the future to work with that data. There's such a massive amount of data that's coming out of the TMC and out of the vehicles and different things that there's just a lot of research that can be done working with that data and making, like Brandon said, turning that data into information and then making that information available to the users, the drivers, the TMC operators, and everybody that needs that information in real time. And by the way, when I say we, I really mean the great researcher staff that we have. And these guys surprised me here sitting up front, but I got Dr. Diomo and Sharjah Hassan are they're the experts in this, so I'm just talking about now. And if I knew you were going to be here, you'd be up here giving this presentation. So I just wanted to, in that Transportation Data Analytics Center, again, working with the data, but then also all the new advanced technologies that use that data and distribute that data. There's just a lot of research and development that can happen with that. But the end goal of that center and all of that is really to improve the safety for the main part, and then also mobility on our roadways. So that's kind of the end goal of it all. Just an example scenario, just driving down here, just took a picture. When we're driving, we kind of have a limited distance that we can see in front of us anyway. We really don't know what's going on in front of us, not immediately in front of us and not far out in front of us. And especially in North Dakota, this is actually a good picture. Usually it's snow or fog or something that you really can't see in front of us. But with this new technology and these things that we're talking about, we do have the opportunity to have real-time data of what's out in front of us, whether it's 1,000 feet, whether it's in front of that camper or 2 miles down the road or 10 miles down the road. We can get warnings back that tell us that there's an incident ahead, traffic's slowing down, it's slowing down fast, or it's stopped, and so that everybody following behind has proper reaction time to deal with that. This year we've had a couple of real bad pileups, and so this technology really goes to improve the safety of that. And I'm getting the time message, so these are all the cool slides that I would have went through if I would have had.
Yeah, my fault.
I was going to talk about two technologies. One of them was artificial intelligence and machine learning, and we're doing some work there. With these guys are using AI to count the vehicles on the road, classify them in real time, and put that data to the cloud where it can be used. And you can see through this picture, there's just a ton of more information that the AI can recognize that data. Everything from crashes to road condition, construction, width restrictions. They can come live from that video because of machine learning and put it to our servers and then get it to the drivers, get it to the TMC and everybody that can use that data. So that's just a huge area of development that we will be working on. And the other one was just connected and automated vehicles. And I didn't really want to talk about all of that because that's kind of a big subject, but just the connected part. Everybody here has cell phones in their pockets with data, plans, and we're all connected. And we've been connected for a long time. So we can use that connection to really work with capturing data out on the road and being able to communicate that back to the cloud services and have that communicate back to the roads. And this is an application that we developed where it's kind of using virtual points that a county engineer puts on a map. Then they have an application that we wrote in a snow plow. When they drive by these points, it automatically takes a picture, sends it back to our servers, and then it's uploaded to the web service here. So people in the public can see when the last time the plow drove by, and then go and see what the road condition was, all on a map in real time. But that's just an example of using, we don't need connected vehicles. We're just using the cloud. We don't have to put out expensive cameras and stations out all over the state. We can use virtual points to do this type of work. And then just lastly, all these things, the TMC, the smart corridor, the data analytics, all the new advanced technologies, where is it all heading? It's all heading towards Vision Zero and towards zero deaths. And this technology is what really, I think, can get us there to that point. We actually can get zero deaths on our roads with this. And so this is a good point to leave because our next session is Vision Zero. So we'll head into that.